Ladies and gentlemen, fellas and Sheilas, welcome back to another fantabulous episode of Voltz Supreme Synth VGM Dream Stream Machine podcast, where we play the synthiest video game music in the universe. Well, as always, I'm very excited to share some of my favorite video game music with you. And this week is no exception. Once again, we are checking out a soundtrack from one of my favorite composers of all time, Masashi Hamauzu. And I'll be honest, I think the previous two soundtracks we looked at were extremely good, but I've been a bit up against the ropes with the last few soundtracks, meaning that I've only had a few synth tracks to choose from each of the soundtracks. And well, if we were doing the next soundtrack in chronological order, we would actually be checking out the Dirge of Cerberus, Final Fantasy VII, which is obviously a Final Fantasy VII offshoot game. Now that is a fantastic soundtrack, but there's not enough synth in it to even make an episode. There's, I think, about half the soundtrack is recorded by the Tokyo Philharmonic Orchestra. It's really fantastic and amazing stuff. If you like orchestral music, it's good. Check it out. Maybe I'll check it out on some sort of offshoot podcast in the future, but for now we're sticking to synth. So we skip that soundtrack and we come to the 2008 Nintendo DS game Sigma Harmonics. Now, I don't know what you think of when you think of Nintendo DS music, but I think you'll be impressed by this. We'll talk more about that soon. But let's not keep our esteemed guest waiting any longer. He is the regular favorite on our Hamauzu episodes, the music producer and headmaster chef of Le Beats Von Boo by Oliver Ackhurst. Ladies and gents, give a warm and toasty welcome to the one and only Oliver Ackhurst.
Oh, it's an honor to be on your podcast, folks. You know, I've been very restrained lately. I've enjoyed the two previous soundtracks so much. I've just wanted to get out and get all of Hamauzu's music. But I'm really trying to just listen to the ones we've covered on this podcast so as to not spoil the taste sensation. You know, we want to try and keep all the booty boo for the episodes, right? Yeah.
Well, welcome, Oliver.
It's my pleasure.
It's always so much fun to go through these soundtracks with you. We've got a lot to talk about, but I think we should kick things off with our first track, and then we can get back into a bit of discussion and introduce the soundtrack a bit more. Okay, so this first track is Rippling Dream by Masashi Hamauzu from the 2008 Nintendo DS game Sigma Harmonics.
Oh, can't wait. music. Oh, now I know we are in for a royal feast. I can't wait.
Yeah, no, this soundtrack is incredible. It's definitely one of my favorites. And yeah, remember folks, this is a Nintendo DS game from 2008. It certainly doesn't sound like any Nintendo DS music that I've heard. But yeah, it is the same music. I think it's just pretty heavily compressed though for the to fit on the cartridge.
Oh, the production is just outstanding, and what a driving rhythm! It really gets me in the groove.
Yeah, so this is a much smaller soundtrack than almost everything Hamauzu's done so far. Most of the other soundtracks are minimum 2 hours worth of music. This is only 1 hour, so I mean it's still a decent length though. And another thing, for the previous soundtracks, we would have lots of acoustic or orchestral instrumentation on most of the songs, with a few of the synth acoustic hybrids and then a few heavily synth songs. Well, for this soundtrack, Sigma Harmonics, almost every song is that hybrid of electronic and acoustic. So I'm very happy that I've got most of the soundtrack to pick songs from this time. However, there's not too many songs where the synth is front and center. But anyway, it is a really amazing soundtrack. But we'll play some more songs and you can be the judge of that for yourself. Alright, so yeah, this next track is The Remains of Time. And take note of the sounds used. A main theme in this game is a haunted clock, or something like that. So take note of how Masashi-san uses the music to remind the player of that clock theme. Anyway, this is Remains of Time by Masashi Hamauzu. Enjoy. Love those clock sounds. Very well done. Listen to that. Nothing like you you'd expect, we're going to put clock sounds into our song for it to sound tacky.
Right, yes.
But, I don't know, to me that sounds really cool.
Voltz, I just loved how that tempo changed. It was certainly a song about time. Very well done.
Yeah, very, very clever, the way he does that throughout the song. So, yeah, you can hear for a song like this, the synth definitely takes a back seat, especially on this song.
Right. It's like, to me, I think of it like this. It's like cooking a flavoursome Thai curry. You know, one of the most important elements to a fine curry is the galangal. It's a bit like ginger, right? But, you know, it's quite different.
Yeah, I know.
But with curries, you've got the sweet, you've got the sour. It's taking front and center, and not to mention spicy, if it's something like Kang Pao, a red curry. Anyway, well, the galang is an essential ingredient. But I doubt any ordinary Charles is going to be able to describe it to me when he tastes one of my curries. But you leave it out. Oh, you leave it out and they're gonna know something's missing. It's essential. It's important. It does its role, but it's behind the scenes. That's how some things work. Sometimes the most important things are hiding behind the scenes, holding everything up, holding them together, binding all the elements. I can just taste it. I can taste it in the music, folks. This is very clever use of all the instruments in these songs.
Yeah, it certainly is. Very well put, Ollie. This next track is it's a little bit similar. Synth doesn't take center stage, but you'll definitely hear it. You get the portamento sine wave melody, then some really lush pads. But okay, this is Gentle Timbre, and man, the start of this song is brilliant. I love it. So enjoy this song.
sunny side up, 'cause the sun is coming out. What a joyful piece of music. Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, again, amazing stuff. I just love how all the instruments are bouncing off each other. It's just so cleverly written. And yeah, I should mention, Violin is like, I think, probably one of the stars of this soundtrack. It's so good. and that is Hirouji Kuwano on violin. And he pretty much does most of Hamauzu's solo violin parts on all his soundtracks, with only a few exceptions. Really confident sound. That's how I would describe it. Anyway, let's move to our next track. And just to give you a taste, there are quite a few songs that are just these really short. Well, they're 1 minute songs, but they're really about 20-second loops that are purely atmospheric, and they're pretty sinister as well. So here's one of them. This is The Summoned Three Claws, again by Masashi Hamauzu. Pretty cool. I'll play one more. This next one is Regret Personified. Can really pull off a wide range of styles, from the really super melodic stuff down to these really dark, purely atmospheric tracks.
Wow, that certainly is a jump in emotions from our last Sunny Side Up. Now it's like, pass me the pork blood, we're making black pudding.
Yeah, well, there's a handful of those kind of songs, really heavy kind of emotions. Anyway, this next track has a lot more energy. This is called Hope Given, Dance of the Dog's Howl. Enjoy. those violins come in, it's pretty powerful. Yeah, that bit. Oh, man. Again, those melodies are just bouncing off each other. It's quite a lot sitting just under the main melody there. Pretty complex kind of stuff, but fairly easy to take in. At least I think it is. For me, it is. It's kind of like your mind translates everything that's going on into a main melody that you can grasp. But when you listen carefully, there's lots of stuff going on there.
Oh, yeah. Wow, it's lots of ingredients as well. This is not orchestral music, but it's certainly borrowing anything it needs from the orchestra at any time to fulfill any role that's needed. Oh, it's absolutely brilliant stuff. This man is just like a master chef who's studied French cuisine, Italian, Szechuan, Indo-Japanese, and I could just go on. Someone who's studied it all and can just pick and choose from all these different culinary disciplines to create his own amazing, unique dishes.
Yes.
Fusion. It's very much like me.
Yeah, it's very unique indeed, just like you, Ollie. I really wish I could come taste some of your dishes. Folks, as you know, Ollie's restaurant is in downtown London, and I'm obviously in Australia, so it's gonna be hard for me to get there, Ollie.
One day, Voltz, one day.
But yeah, not heaps of synth in that last one. It was kind of just dancing around with the piano parts a bit, and just, in my opinion, it was just adding a little bit more of a modern flavour to that track.
Yes.
Anyway, so let's move to something a bit heavier on the synth end. This next track is Bright Invitation, Dance of the Iron Ox, again by Masashi Hamauzu.
Don't get me started on oxtail soup, Voltz.
Okay, folks, enjoy. That's very nice. Definitely lots of synth in that one. I'm going to mention, I think from this point on, this is where Mitsudo Suzuki jumps on board, and I don't know if you'd say he replaces Ryo Yamazaki as the synthesizer programmer or whatever. I'm not entirely sure about the details, but he's certainly credited as someone who helps with the overall production, and I'm pretty sure he's credited as a synthesizer operator, whatever you'd call it, on other albums, other soundtracks. And yeah, they work pretty closely together from here onwards. Suzuki will write lots of the music from the Final Fantasy 13 sequels, and they even work together on the recent Final Fantasy 7 remake. But anyway, that was a nice track. I think it had a bit of a sci-fi kind of vibe to it at certain points.
Oh, yes, it was certainly a very electronic track. But you still have that splendid violin, and I think it was a wise choice. It added that crisp freshness that was really needed, and that little bit of booty boo. Oh, yes.
Yeah, okay, well, up next is another amazing track, as you could probably guess. This is certainly a lot simpler than some of the other more complex tunes we've heard. Only a couple of chords for the main bit, but with all the other elements going on, it really pulls some emotional weight, in my opinion. This is pretty powerful stuff. It's called Watchers of the Time Disasters. Again, by Masashi Hamauzu. Enjoy. synth pads, they just add so much more weight to the string sounds, and it blends really nicely together. And you got all those clock sounds. It's pretty perfect in my opinion.
Oh, Voltz, I'm struggling to think of a food metaphor for this one. My goodness. Such power. Oh, all I can think of is this. Alright. It's like taking the finest, saltiest swine that ever lived, putting it on a spit and then roasting it over the mouth of an active volcano. Oh, the power. Oh.
Yeah, I think you are stretching it a bit with that one there. But yeah, I love it. It's a great track. But like any good meal, Ollie, we need to balance things out a bit. So this next song is a lot lighter. And it probably has my favorite synth parts out of the whole soundtrack. Definitely not my favorite song, but the synth in this is very clever. So this is It May Be Bright, Dance of the Dragon God. Enjoy.
Voltz. That was a dainty little dessert now, wasn't it? I certainly wasn't expecting that. It was like little mochi balls or daifuku presented on paper-thin wafer. Very tasty and subtle and gentle.
Yeah, like that last track we played was just massive sounding, and then this is the total opposite. I really love it, especially how much that really soft synth, that sine wave synth, just playfully bounces around. You know, there's a few synths going on and all set in different they're panned differently, and yeah, I love it. Very clever, excellent stuff. Okay, let's bring things back up a little bit then. This next track is called Guided to the Finale, Dance of the Moon Spirit by Masashi Hamauzu. Enjoy. Cool. We've still got two more songs to fit in, so how about we just jump straight to the next one? This is another fairly atmospheric track, and it's called Approaching the Abyss. Enjoy. really cool. I love those percussion hit sounds.
Yes, it's like he's turned on a guitar amplifier with a built-in spring reverb, and he's just whacking the amplifier. Oh, it's just dripping with ambience.
Yeah, it's great. So this brings us to the end, Ollie. This was a pretty good soundtrack to cover. Not super heavy on the synth, but not everything revolves around synths, unless it's this podcast. No, I think his use of synths are always very clever.
Right, yes.
It was a pretty small soundtrack compared to what we've looked at previously and what's coming up next. So I'll look up the details next time, but from memory, Hamauzu started working on the Final Fantasy 13 soundtrack, and then that got put on hold pretty early on. So I think he then moved on to this game, Sigma Harmonics, and then straight back to Final Fantasy 13. So this kind of sits in the middle of Final Fantasy 13 chronologically, but it was released the year before, I think. And Final Fantasy 13, so that episode will be coming up next, and it's very, very different to this. Firstly, I mean, it still sounds like Hamauzu, but firstly, it's massive. Like, it's over 4 hours long. There's tons of orchestral stuff, and that's mostly where all the best stuff is. But I think there's enough synthy goodness for a really solid episode. Final Fantasy 13 is one of my favorite soundtracks, and it's a big inspiration for me. Musical inspiration. So anyway, that's coming up sometime in the future, probably in the next season of Voltz Supreme Synth VGM Dream Stream Machine podcast. But right, thanks again, Oliver Ackhurst, for coming on the show and enjoying these Masashi Hamauzu video game tunes with me.
I just can't wait till next time, Voltz. I'm actually going to go try and get this soundtrack so I can listen to the rest of it.
Yeah, I recommend everyone does that if they enjoyed the songs. Okay, well, that's that. So this final track is Visiting Again Soon. And I hope you'll all visit me again soon next week. Thanks again, Ollie, and thank you everyone for tuning in. Remember to share or leave a comment somewhere letting me know what you thought about the tunes. Anyway, this is Visiting Again Soon by Masashi Hamauzu from the game Sigma Harmonics. Enjoy and stay synthetic. Ciao.